Hi guys, hope you're doing well. This one here is going to be a video. It's a prophecy update. I see some things happening around the Mediterranean area, Middle East. Some key players that we would be looking for in prophecy. And so when I see that, as I said before, I like to kind of do these prophecy updates because there's so much happening right now that it kind of just makes sense to do them. So not wanting to do them just to be doing them. So, but I think a lot of things are happening and it's pretty intriguing stuff. So anyway, what I see happening right now, interesting. The players who are involved are, you have in the GCE and Mediterranean area at large, you have Greece announcing a trade agreement with Egypt, which is to nullify or make nullify the trade agreement, supposedly this corridor that Erdogan just announced, with Libya, which he sent forces into, and lots of forces and so forth to basically, in essence, have control over the oil and natural gases of Libya. Make no bones about it. And he basically said, hey, we have this corridor of trade, and anything going through here is subject to us. Well, he just basically sealed off the entire Mediterranean, Western Mediterranean area there, right in front of Egypt and right around Greece and so forth. And then they've been sending these ships, throughout the Mediterranean, East and West Mediterranean, basically looking for oil and natural gas, drilling and so forth. Well, this is a real problem because Israel already has, this is territorial waters of other countries. People, how they look at it, you're intruding upon their soil and their water areas and so forth. And well, this is what Turkey's been doing, and they've been doing more of it, trying to fill the void of where America's been pulling out of the Middle East by and large. So we see it play. You see Egypt, you see Libya, you see Turkey, you see Russia also in this whole mix in Libya and in Syria. You see America, and you see Israel, obviously. Clearly, most of those people are all involved in this Gog-Magog war. If you haven't watched my video, please do. Now, many Christians have talked about this, many times, but we're starting to see a lot of things happening that I think is leading to these events. Well, as we see this trade agreement, which, interesting, the European Union seems to be supporting Greece, and at the same time, America seems to be supporting Greece in this as well, and Egypt, and not Erdogan, who's been acting very antagonistic towards NATO, towards Europe, the European Union, and towards America, and more embracing the things of this new kind of Islamist type of worldview that Erdogan, he's always had this, and he's never really hid it, but he's just more upfront about it now. He's never been the one to follow the kind of Ataturk mentality. He doesn't follow that mode. He sees it, I think, as something to reject, as somebody who is, opposed to Islam. I think that's how he views him, even though he may not come out and say it. Even though you see portraits of Ataturk everywhere, and he's the founder of modern Turkey, Erdogan sees himself more of a, as an Ottoman ruler, Mehmed II type guy, where he's wanting to reestablish, the entire Islamist control and the reestablishment of this Ottoman Empire over the greater Mediterranean, Middle East, all the way across, over even as far as China and throughout over Greece and everything. He even talks, and they openly talk about, and he's come right out and said, to reinvade Greece and conquer them and throw them out into the ocean, he says. And here's a guy who's taken over the Hagia Sophia, the Eastern Orthodox Catholic. He sees them all as one. So, he sees Christianity as one thing. Where Catholicism and Christianity is not the same, as we know that. It's another gospel, another salvation. I don't need to go into all that with you, but clearly I've done it in my other videos. It's clearly preaching another gospel, one of works. So they're not necessarily, they have Christian veneer, but not necessarily Christianity. And as Paul said in Galatians, anybody brings you another gospel, they're not. It's not another gospel. It's clearly false teaching. Well, then you can't call them your Christian brother. So to stay true to that message of Christ, we need to be always make sure that we're not confused, even though people in other areas of the world or other faiths, especially Muslims, they like to lump everybody together because it's just easier that way, I guess, in their mind. But Erdogan seems to do that. Anyway, he took over Hagia Sophia. He was basically turned into a museum under Ataturk, and he realized that move forward, they needed to industrialize, they needed to modernize, and the whole ideal and the 7th century mindset of the Ottoman Empire was failed. Had been failing for a long time. It was the sick man of Europe, as it were. It was, like Russia, but not to the same degree, even worse. They were struggling even with people, during the wars with, Lawrence of Arabia. You had these raiders, they were defeating the Ottomans in various places, which shows you the weakness. The guys running around on horseback and defeating them. And then ultimately led to World War I and the destruction of the Ottoman Empire officially. That's what happened. But and the decline of the Ottoman Empire has been shrinking ever since. Well, they obviously see this as an opportunity to expand that back out again and create this caliphate, and he'll become the leader of the Ummah, the leader of Islam, and that's how he sees himself, this greater, Mehmed the second type of personality, this leader of Islam and leader of a caliphate, and the Ottoman Empire reestablishing its control and dominance over the world. And part of going into Hagia Sophia, as he sees it, I think, is establishing as a mosque again, which he didn't need to do, but he did that purposely to show him he's going to oppress the Christians. As he sees Christians, it's actually Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, but we don't want anybody oppressed. But he sees that as that, and then he's even, from was announced, the things I read was that other Christians are even being, foreign Christians are being told to leave Turkey, and so he's showing his Islamism, Islamic supremacy coming out of him, and he's now threatening his neighbors around him more and more. He sent troops into Libya. He's already. Turkey's invaded northern Cyprus and took over it. So how's he going to tell Israel that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing? And basically the argument is, well, this Hagia Sophia is within our rights to do so because it's in Turkey. Well, okay, well then, if Israel decides to take over the Al-Aqsa Mosque, hey, it's in their territory. They have the right to do it. They can do whatever they want. They could say, hey, we're going to build a temple right here. Sorry, get rid of the Dome of the Rock. It's the same mentality, but for him it doesn't count because it's not Islamic. So, but that's the mentality that you're getting from these supremacists, Islamist supremacists. Well, he's basically sent his forces in there, and he's declaring these arbitrary laws that somehow we're going to take over. We have a right to the Mediterranean, east west. We're going to take whatever we want. Well, other nations aren't agreeing with that, and Greece and Egypt obviously had an agreement and said, hey, we're going to come together and we're going to do it on a level that is acknowledged by all the communities of the world and nations of the world, and so ours is legitimate, yours isn't. Obviously, your country's way over here, and you're coming over here declaring that this waterway is yours because you made an agreement with Libya, and somehow you can tie those two together and completely seal everybody off, and they're not going for it. Well, that sets up some very interesting stuff that could happen. We don't want to get too speculative in everything that we're doing, but it does seem to play the right people, which is, we see people at play, which is Libya, Turkey, Russia. Those are key players in the Gog-Magog war. Israel, who wants to run that gas pipeline up through Cyprus into Greece. Greece would like that as well. They get a cut of the pie. They get money out of the deal. Egypt is getting gas already from an agreement with Israel, but they would have some of that oil and natural gas is coming from Libya as well. They're threatening to go into Libya if Turkey doesn't back off, things like that. Things are getting really interesting. And then when you get this hothead like Erdogan, who's threatening and becoming more antagonistic and seeing the withdrawal of America, he sees his chance to really make a grab for more power, more dominance in the area, become this major player. And Russia's not liking it because they're trying to move into the area and fill that void. And you still have this big sword out there, which I think is America. And I think, as I said before, if you watch my video on Gog-Magog, I think this sword, when the Bible talks about God will bring a sword against this coalition, which will be Russia, Turkey, and Iran, Libya, and others. as they come into and invade Israel for that natural gas and oil, and to stop that pipeline, which will cut Russia's throat economically, because about 60% or so, depending on what you read, of their economy is based upon natural gas and oil. Most of it sold to Europe. Well, they'd be cut out of the deal. And as that pipeline gets there and it splinters off and they start supplying natural gas and oil to other entities there, it's really going to long-term hurt Turkey and Russia. Well, neither one of them want that, so that's why you see them doing this move into Libya to seal off the Mediterranean, so you can't run that pipeline through. Russia's already invaded Georgia or something like that over a pipeline. He also invaded Crimea to cut off a pipeline, and he went into Syria to stop them from running a pipeline up through Syria, all the way from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, those kind of places, running on up through there to eventually make it into Turkey. Well, he cut all that off when he went in there. That's what Putin was doing, I believe. So it's all about natural resources, oil, natural gas. Well, the same thing's happening here. Israel wants to run that pipeline. They just announced last week, which I did a video on as well, where the court system came out and said, hey, it's perfectly legal. We can go ahead and with the move forward with running this. We agree on the agreement with Greece and so forth to run this pipeline over to them through Cyprus. Well, immediately everybody's in play now. And as that happens, interesting things are going to happen. And I believe America will be that sword that God brings against this coalition of power of Russia, Turkey, Iran, and so forth, because they're really the only one that can. And we happen to see them in play as well, but standing in the background with this whole election process and all this turmoil happening, everybody's eyes off the ball, not really pay attention to what's going on over there. And here's Erdogan leader really trying to push for this kind of reestablishment of this Ottoman Empire, rulership and grand movement toward becoming the leader of the Islamic world, as it were, and being looked at as this kind of really, almost like he's the Mahdi type look, Well, it's going to lead to some really interesting things. So we need to keep our eye on it. So that's what this whole video is about. Basically, hey, there's some interesting things happening afoot, which is leading to events that could very well quickly establish or become what we would see as the Gog-Magog war. We see Russia in play, we see Turkey in play, we see now Greece and other nations that we see. I honestly think that Egypt might suffer dramatically from this whole thing and actually wind up losing in a dramatic fashion very quickly. We'll see how that played out. I think areas of Ezekiel kind of allude to that, depending on how you look at it. But definitely something we need to keep an eye on. And if that happens, all bets are off, because then Turkey would feel emboldened. So would Russia, to make a move very quickly, move down to the Middle East depending on how Israel responds to it. Something dramatic happens, and then suddenly they find themselves being invaded, and thinking that America is just too preoccupied or out of it or whatever, and not going to respond, and they will miscalculate. And as they go in there, God will spend this, this great earthquake. America will respond, and then you'll see that they will turn on each other. And right now, you see them kind of like allies in Syria, but hostile in Libya. It's like the perfect pictures we would see how these people, why they would turn on each other. And the Bible says that they will turn on each other. So everything seems to be fitting really in place for this thing to happen. So we need to keep an eye on it as Christians, because I think the Gog-Magog war will happen, and then we'll see the Antichrist quickly thereon surface and declare himself, and show himself. And I think as Christians, we'll know who he is, and we'll be telling the world, and they're not going to buy it necessarily because it's too late, but I think he'll reveal himself, and then I think the rapture will occur between that point and ultimately him, once he's on the scene, he'll establish himself as a world leader, and he'll go in and say, hey, we need to solve this problem with Israel and the nations, and he'll declare a 7-year peace agreement as a trial period, as whatever, but it'll be a false one, fulfilling Daniel chapter 9, where it talks about him establishing this false peace that he goes in the middle of and declares and breaks that peace. And we know what Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, he goes in and declares himself to be God, and all hell breaks loose, because that falls exactly in Revelation 11, where he's basically kills the 2 witnesses, and then you have 3.5 years of absolute hell on earth and judgment of mankind. And depending on how you read those judgments, anywhere from half, 2/3 to 11/12, depending on how you read those judgments, of mankind will be killed. So very few people will survive it. So, it's 7 years. If you told somebody 7 years from now, anywhere from half to 11/12 of all people will be dead, depending on how you look at those judgments, you're talking about a massive amount of people in death, and very few people are going to survive it. In the next 7 years, you have a very good little chance of surviving this. And if you did, you wish you probably didn't, because it'd be that bad. Starvation, pestilence, diseases, war, famine, I mean, you name it, sun, judgments, everything else, pounding of hailstones. I mean, to survive it would be brutal. Nobody wants somebody to go through that, and that's why we need to be active in sharing the gospel, because time is very short. That's why we do these. Keep our eye on the ball, just like Jesus said. We need to be looking and aware, and he says, like I tell you, like I tell all, to be ready. Well, we need to be ready. We need to be looking, know the prophecies that God's given to us, and just keep our eye on the things that are happening, because I think we're living in those final hours before the revealing of the Antichrist and ultimately the rapture of the church, and then comes the tribulation. So anyway, I hope that's a blessing to you. Keep your eye on what's happening in Greece, Turkey, Libya, Israel, Russia. Definitely some interesting things happening. Mountains of Israel, all that's seems to be happening right now in an aggressive way, fast way. Things are moving fluidly. So yeah, we need to definitely keep our eye on it. So anyway, God bless. Be safe. Keep looking up. And if I don't see you in this life, I'll see you in the kingdom to come, because Lord knows we'll be going home soon. It's pretty amazing stuff, that's happening. So yeah, you can get a chance to watch my rapture dream. It was very, very powerful dream, man. It was very amazing. So and I very seldom ever have dreams, so it was pretty amazing, So yeah, even now reflecting on it, especially the image of Christ, it was just, it's still there, and it's, amazing, just looking at it. So you get a chance to check that out. I think hopefully it's a blessing to you in your walk, So anyway, God bless, be safe, and stay in the Word. God bless.